Welcome back to Collecting Cars. Today I'm driving a 1960s Chevrolet Corvette C1. The first Corvette was presented in 1953 in the Waldorf Astoria Hotel in New York. It was the year Truman announced the US had developed a hydrogen bomb, the year Eisenhower was sworn in as the 34th President of the United States, and the year Hugh Hefner published the first Playboy magazine. Originally codenamed Project Opal, the name Corvette came from a class of small manoeuvrable warships. It was a car that would go on to become America's most famous two-seat sports car, synonymous with freedom and driving the open road. By 1958, the fiberglass Corvette had received some updates, including a longer front end with quad headlamps, bumper exiting exhaust tips, and a new steering wheel and dashboard with gauges all mounted directly in front of the driver. It was also a 1960 model year C1 that appeared in the TV series Route 66, and so forever cementing the Corvette in American popular culture. The C1 had a 9-year production run before it was replaced by the C2. Today we're on the Corvette's 8th incarnation, and we've moved from the classic front engine to a front mid-engine layout. The Corvette is a car that has stirred emotion for almost 70 years now, and the C1 is the beginning of all that. And when you look at this thing, you can understand why it's lasted just that long. The first thing that strikes you about the C1 is this gaping grille. Almost looks like a basking shark there. And then we've got this enormous Chevrolet Corvette medallion on the front of the bonnet, flanked by these quad headlights. By modern standards, and certainly cars in America of this era, the Corvette is actually quite a small package. But that being said, the front end is still quite large, and that's because it's got to fit this 4.6 litre lump underneath the hood there. Under the hood, we've got a legendary 4.6 litre V8, the 238 cubic inch. 0 to 60 will come in around 6 seconds, but quite frankly, it's more about how this car looks and the way it makes you feel than how fast it gets to 60 miles an hour. The car is awash with chrome. It's absolutely everywhere, from the front fenders, the headlight covers, the detailing down the front bonnet and the side panels of the car. These actually remind me of an Austin Healey 3000, and that's probably no surprise because actually the designer of this car used the Nash Healey for the inspiration. The windscreen sits up and proud and wraps around. Reminds me a bit of the XKSS I got the ride in just recently at Silverstone. And then we get round to the back of the car, and it's normally at this point where there's not an awful lot to say. But on the Corvette, we've got this real sort of duck's tail to where the boot line comes to. Again, we've got that big center medallion, and then we've got these brake lights sitting on top of the fenders. The shape of those actually remind me a little bit of the Disco Volante. One of the coolest things I think on the C1 is that they've managed to integrate the exhaust into the chrome bumpers either side. So we've got twin exhausts, but they're fully integrated into the bumper. That's a really cool feature. Hides those away very nicely. Now, I'm not a man of enormous stature, but even for me, getting into this car can be a little bit of a challenge because it is quite narrow here and the steering wheel comes down very low. So watch this, you sort of try and thread yourself in as you get in. Oh, head catch is there. So for those who are a bit taller, it could be quite a challenge. In the 60s, this would have felt incredibly futuristic. It's almost a Jetsons-like in here. When you've closed the door and if you've got the window down, it's almost irresistible not to have your elbow just resting on it as you drive. In front of you then, you've got this lovely 3-spoked steering wheel. It is oversized, but that's exactly how things were in period for these cars. And in front of you, you've got this really neat instrument layout. A lot of thought's gone into the interior detail of this car. We've got a big speedometer in front of us, which sits perfectly in your eye line there as you look out over the great nose of the Corvette. And then we've got these smaller sub-dials, 2 on each side, and then in the centre, below the speedometer, we've got the rev counter. Those dials either side incidentally have your fuel, water temperature, battery and oil temperature. Then we've got these lovely little toggles below for your lights, your wipers, and nice lighter of back in the day there. Hidden underneath this wrap-around dash, we've got a little radio there, 1960s, no doubt playing Elvis Presley on the radio. This C1 has a 4-speed manual transmission, and they've even got a little plaque next to the gear stick which shows the pattern of the gears. Right, I promised you some sound from that engine, so check this out. Woo! The American dream. Route 66, baby. Woo. It's actually quite surprising how neat it is on the inside. Those of us over the pond in the UK often think of American cars being these absolutely enormous beasts, but actually it's very, very snug in here, surprisingly. To see more of this car and other great collectibles, head over to collectingcars.com. Thanks for watching and see you soon.